Hello everyone, welcome back to the Hindu Explainer series. I am Kushagra Goel and very warm greetings from Lopra Tutorial. I once again hope all of you are taking all the precautions for COVID-19 and all your family members are also safe. So make sure that you continue doing that until this is past us, and also on the side that you have registered on the COVID portal and are trying to get yourself vaccinated as soon as possible for all those who are now eligible. So on that note, I'll begin with today's newspaper. So we once again have been having more and more headlines from the Supreme Court, and both of them are related to the functioning of different organs of the government. Now, there is one thing that I was reminded that I had missed out telling you all regarding this hearing that is going on in the Supreme Court. So the Supreme Court has been hearing this petition about supply of oxygen and other medical essentials. Similarly, different high courts have also been hearing PILs or taking suo motu action about it, right? In this, what is the court telling the government or the organization that is dealing with healthcare? That make sure that you have oxygen, you are supplying oxygen properly, make sure that you try reducing the cost on this. No one should be harassed for citing complaints. The order that Supreme Court made that no government should threaten those who are seeking help. There is these are testing times, you have to be warm towards them. The court stayed hearing of the High Court regarding contempt, calling that this is not the time to jail people, but actually. So what constitutional provision does it all fall under? So what is the court telling? Court is directing towards acts of omission or orders that the government ought to be doing. Both the things fall under the writ petition of Mandamus. And because the court has been continuously hearing it and continuously continuing to observe this falls under the scheme of continuing mandamus. All right, the phenomenon under which the constitutional process or the legal provision through which the court has been doing this is the power of continuing mandamus. It is a writ petition under Article 32 of the Indian Constitution. And under this, the court has been hearing it. So yesterday, on the next day of the hearing, the court highlighted how the government should also come up with two things. First, regarding a plan, a buffer stock for future oxygen, that an oxygen audit should be done so that for future we don't have this shortage. Because now, as foreign aid has come in, oxygen supply is being relinquished at different places. But at the same time, there is no assurity that until cases fall, this demand of oxygen will only rise. And remember, while the oxygen supply is being provided to hospitals, industrial use of oxygen has been completely prohibited. Something that will then be required. So we will once again be diverting resources away from healthcare. And to avoid that, we need to keep on ramping up our oxygen, medical use of oxygen. Secondly, the court highlighted what is your plan for the third wave. So yesterday, the principal advisor, the scientific advisor to Government of India on COVID-19 highlighted that it is inevitable that India will also face a third wave of the coronavirus, and in that regard there is higher risk of children. So in the first wave, not only were the total cases less, but people below the age of 50 were also less infected. But in the second wave, we have seen more and more people above the age of 18 have been infected and have even passed away. So therefore that becomes important. So those two things courts highlighted. But for us, the continuing mandamus under Article 32 becomes important, under which the court has been hearing this. Then on the right hand side, Supreme Court finally released the judgment regarding the claim of Election Commission to expel the remarks that the Madras High Court had made. So the court stated it declined a plea made by Election Commission. This is something we discussed a couple of days ago. That was based on the oral reporting of the orders that the court had made, but now the final judgment has also been released. In that regard, the court highlighted that judges remarked that the election commission was solely responsible, that see, there needs a delicate balancing of power and both are constitutional authorities. However, this cannot be done away with because this is part of right to freedom of speech the court has held in its judgment. Secondly, it also laid down the marker that see, the benchmark now is different courts are coming up with live streaming of their proceedings. So thus, at a time when courts are moving towards more and more transparency, the court cannot pass an order and turn the clock on all these steps because the court welcomes these steps of transparency of court functioning, highlighting the importance of questions, arguments addressed in the court, issues raised, as these are legitimate right of the public to be informed about them. So not only is this part of democratic process, but also is part of our right to seek information from public authorities, which is courts. So thus, there is a legitimate public interest in what the courts discuss, and that cannot be curbed in any manner whatsoever. Then moving on, so India and South Africa have raised a claim under the TRIPS agreement that see, we need a waiver of intellectual property, which would provide or make way for manufacturers of medicines across the globe to prepare and manufacture COVID vaccines at a higher pace. Until now, only those who have developed the vaccine can manufacture it based on their individual capacity. But the need of ending the COVID-19 pandemic is more. And yesterday, France and United States came on board with this agenda of India and South Africa that this waiver should be granted. Russian President Vladimir Putin has already confirmed. So this is now the last bulwark is now at the European Union summit, which will be meeting on Friday to discuss the same issue. Apart from that, on the front page, nothing of real note for us. More and more people receiving their coronavirus jabs, and the same time, the trouble with COVID-19 is not abating. We are still reporting high number of cases. And yesterday, for the first time, was when the oxygen supply to Delhi was as per what it was required. But still, there is shortage of oxygen in other parts of the country, especially in Karnataka, which has now sought more oxygen for itself. Then moving on the editorial front. On the editorial front, the main one, social murder and missing state. This criticizes that during the second wave, the government of India or the state in general has been missing and citizens have been left to fend off for themselves. So the onus of these deaths, no one is denying that this is a once in a century crisis, but the inaction of the state, the omission of the state has put the accountability and their actions in forefront that see, things could have been better. Things could have been handled better if the government and those who run the government would have been upfront about these issues, recognizing that these are more important and thus these are all social murder, the term that the Madras High Court also used regarding the inaction of the authorities. Then on the left hand side, hat trick. This is about that the onus is on Mamata Banerjee to also push for ending the situation of violence that is now there in West Bengal. It is not as exaggerated as it is being made out by one political party, but at the same time, it is also a mandate for her to reform. People have reposed faith in her. At the same time, it is also a mandate for the other party which has not been voted to power that see, you cannot run the country or the state in the same manner as you want to do it, and they should accept the people's mandate and move on. But both of them politically related, not that relevant for us. The second one is more relevant. So yesterday, RBI Governor Shashikanta Das came up with provisions and assistance for those who are suffering more because of the second wave. In that regard now, priority lending up to 50,000 crore term liquidity facility has been opened up by RBI for priority sectors. Under this, vaccine manufacturers, hospital, pathology labs, supply of oxygen and ventilators, and anything related to COVID-19 has now been made part of priority sector lending. So if you want more lending, if you need more money to expand production, if you need money to supply, the RBI is there to help you. At the same time, the RBI has also permitted individuals, MSMEs, who are facing the brunt of second wave because of limited economic activity to restructure their loan. So this will be another policy to assist the people. Then the second editorial here, in Ireland's complex troubles, lessons for India. This is talking about that a functioning democracy must commit to communal issues with vigilance, tolerance, and compromise. This is related to Republic of Ireland and the Northern Ireland. Northern Ireland is part of United Kingdom, just like England and Scotland are. But the area has always been marred by violence between two groups, that is Protestants and the Catholics. In that regard, this has always taken a communal look and communal violence in the country. And it has not even rebated even after the Anglo-Irish Good Friday Agreement of 1998. What we need to understand from this is about the right to self-determination at one level, which, for example, the referendum of Britain wanting to leave European Union was, that it was left to the people, you decide what you want to do. Similarly, the people of Northern Ireland have also been calling for independence from United Kingdom. We have had enough of United Kingdom. There is no need for it. We want to take our individual path now. So in that regard, the next elections in Ireland will pave a way of where the winds will blow. People of Northern Ireland had wholeheartedly voted for remaining in European Union, but they had to move out of it because of Brexit, because they are tied to what happens in United Kingdom. But now winds are flowing on the other direction, and this has led to violence in the area. People have been economically suffering. The overall peace has not come. The lesson that it wants to highlight is that in India also we have been seeing communal tensions. We have been seeing political parties who actually flag these communal tensions to a higher degree for their own power brokers. Basically, to remain in power, they do that. The trouble out of it is only through political solutions and to compromise. That this is not a sustainable path. Communal politics just is a doom for the entire society, and thus we need to understand. So what we need to know from this is about the right to self-determination of the people of Northern Ireland from United Kingdom. Along with this, it is also about the other part of it is how politics should be in a functioning democracy. So the legal part is more important than the political one. Then moving on the other national news, this is about election, not relevant for us. Then following on is patent waiver will help fight virus, is what the government of India has responded. So India has welcomed the step of France and United States to accept the proposal of India and South Africa for waiver under TRIPS. We have done an in-depth analysis about it, so make sure you remember that and you go and revisit that. At the same time, because of COVID-19, son of our former Prime Minister Chaudhry Charan Singh and our LD's chief, that is Ajit Singh, passed away because of COVID-19. He was a union minister in the government of Atal Bihari Vajpayee and in the UPA until 2014. So this is another loss to the country because of COVID-19. Because of the pandemic, we have lost a lot of public figures continuously. Then moving on the international page, there is more updates for us in that regard that become important. So the first one that we need to know is about China and Australia. What happens in Australia, or the relationship in China vis-a-vis Australia, is important for India also. So China is the largest trading partner of Australia. Australia is heavily reliant on imports of coal from China for its energy needs. However, similar to India, Australia has also not permitted Chinese companies as part of its 5G infrastructure. That has led to now China halting all economics dialogue with Australia. How now this is being seen as a diplomatic pressure. There is no immediate impact of it on the trade, but it may have ramifications. China has already imposed sanctions on Australia. The response of this has been Australia calling for independent inquiry into the outbreak of coronavirus in China. Secondly, about what is happening in Xinjiang province to Uyghur Muslims. So that has enraged the Chinese government, and that has now led to this diplomatic posturing. Whether it actually affects their trade or not needs to be seen. Australia has also taken a stand by joining the Quad, which is once again a step to contain China in the Indo-Pacific region. So all of that has been flagging the economic relationship between China and Australia. Both of them are part of the RCEP. They also have a free trade agreement between themselves since 2015. So whether and how trade gets affected, that needs to be seen. Then on the right hand side, it's an explainer of what is Facebook's oversight board. So this now Facebook is a private company, but at Facebook, people write about information. For example, a lot of our government bodies also have page on Facebook. Subramaniam Jaishankar, yesterday, our External Affairs Minister, told that he is isolating in United Kingdom because he has come in contact with people who have been COVID positive. So therefore, this shows that, see, even if a private company is there, the information on the platform is more of public interest. Secondly, Facebook is now a platform which has more active users than any country in the world. So if Facebook was a country, if active users of Facebook were a country, Facebook would have been the most populous country of the world. This highlights that, see, there needs to be some amount of independence and who determines whether what speech should exist on the platform and what shouldn't, right? Recently, the oversight board of Facebook also stated that Facebook had wrongly removed posts about criticism of the farmer protests and the government. In that regard, it had also talked about how recently there have been hashtags about resignation of Prime Minister of India, and that were also accidentally blocked. So to determine what stance should the platform take, the private corporate interest should not come into picture regarding public speech. Thus, the Facebook company itself created an independent oversight board with 20 members in total, which will decide on the actions that the platform takes. It has the power to tell the company whether its action of removal of content were correct or not, and in case they were incorrect, they should be restored. So therefore, now it's like a pseudo judicial body that determines whether speech on different platforms is correctly removed or not. All right. Then the next news is about Russia approves 1-dose Sputnik Light. So Sputnik 5 vaccine, which has been approved for emergency use in India, and we have already received 1.5 lakh such doses under our pharmaceutical company Dr. Reddy's, has now come up with a modified version of the vaccine. So Sputnik 5 uses two different adenovirus. So the first dose is of one, the second dose is of another. Now they have come up with Sputnik Light, which is single dose Sputnik vaccine, which only uses the first part of the Sputnik vaccine, which is the adenovirus RAD26. So this one is only the first dose, which has now been called as Sputnik Light. It is this single dosage that has now been granted emergency authorized use in Russia. And it is claimed as by the CEO of the company, Cyril Dmitriev, that there is demand in different countries for this vaccine because it will make it very affordable to lower income countries. So that needs to be seen. India has approved the 2-dosage regime, which is the Sputnik 5 vaccine. All right. Then more updates from Afghanistan. Taliban has now captured the second largest dam of Afghanistan, which is the Dahala Dam. It is the Dahala Dam near the Kandahar region, which is important for agricultural purposes, which shows that Taliban is on the rise. Peace in Afghanistan is something that is still very, very far away. Then on the economics page, drug makers say Biden misguided over patent waiver. So companies such as Moderna, Pfizer, which will be on the receiving end if the TRIPS waiver is granted, have called that, see, this is a misguided step. See, they want to protect their profit. They want to ensure that the maximum money is received by them, because this is their time to make astronomical money, and therefore such a step would be reducing their profit. And thus this has alerted them that, see, this is something that should not be done. So these are different interests. We need to wait for only what is actually determined. On that note, on the sporting page also, nothing of real note for us. Thus, I will conclude for the day in today's newspaper. Remember, continuing Mandamus under Article 32, which is part of both all these PILs that are being filed and courts taking suo motu action about it. Then secondly, about the right to self-determination as an island. Third, RBI's proposed assistance towards those who have been suffering because of the second wave of coronavirus. Then on international page, the Facebook Oversight Board, Sputnik Light vaccine, and the relationship between China and Australia. The last thing becomes more important for us because it affects relationship. It is India has a stakeholder with both these countries. If the relationship strains between them, there is economic opportunity for India, and there can be reversals for India also as things go in that regard. So on that note, I'll conclude for the day. Take care of yourselves, and I'll see you all tomorrow.